Frantz Kantor here again, cartoonist, illustrator, toon talker and caricaturist, as Jim Bridges, the president of the Australian Cartoon Museum, always reminds me to mention. I'm doing a caricature today. This is me. I'm actually here at the Australian Cartoon Museum. My guest speaker is Charles Kovess.
Hello friends, lovely to be here with you.
Australasia's passion provocateur.
Beautiful.
It's all about passion in our lives and in our beliefs, and trying to sort of survive with a real purpose in life. What was the saying that you said in your podcast about, was it Aristotle?
Yes. The unexamined life is not worth living, Socrates.
Beautiful. Socrates, there you go.
The unexamined life is not worth living.
Yep. Which means that, take some time and smell the flowers. Examine your life.
Yes.
So the subject for today is somebody that's actually quite an influential character in the 20th century. This is Bucky Fuller. His real name is Buckminster Fuller.
And his real name is Dr. Richard Buckminster Fuller, Dr. R. Buckminster Fuller, but everyone called him Bucky.
Bucky, yeah. So he was a very influential mind. He's the father of the geodesic dome, the concept of this perfect constructed form that echoes nature, that echoes a perfect structure from nature, and how these have actually created an architectural foundation, or an architectural direction, a strong architectural direction, particularly towards more sustainable environments, more for humans, rather than living in boxes and things like that.
And the geodesic dome is a structure that encloses the greatest amount of space with the least possible materials.
Correct. Yep. So this is him with looks like a matchbook.
Icosahedron, probably.
Yes. Yeah. And this is him. He's most of the photographs of Buckminster Fuller are from the later part of his life, where I guess he's more sort of best known for speaking and being on TV and radio and etc. Really formulated his ideas and his beliefs and shared them with the world, and we're richer for it. So I'm actually going to work on this one because I think that's kind of like a looking into the future sort of expression.
Yes, I get that as well with that picture.
Yeah, so I've done a little thumbnail sketch. I've tried to work out some shapes to play with. His head is very iconic, because you've got these features of the glasses and obviously his head, which is short shaved, and his expression with his mouth. So there's a lot of stuff here. I'll explain the little bit of the psychology based on the formation of forms and wrinkles and things that go around the features as we get into it. But for the moment, we're going to look at, obviously it's a drawing tutorial, so if we try to think of the light forms or the light coming in from the right-hand side, so all of our shadow areas are going to be favoured onto the left. So that's where our main source of contrast is going to be available to us. And you need contrast. I'm working on a toned paper surface, which is just, you can use any kind of toned paper. This is a particularly nice and smooth one. It's toned because it's 50% of the way. To do a tonal drawing, you need white and you need black, and you need like a tonal pencil. In this case, we've got like a terracotta, which is a sort of a red. We'll also be using a black pencil, which is a polychroma. These are quite expensive, like $3 each. And we'll be using a white pencil. And I think I've kind of whittled my white pencils down. I could go and get another one, but this is another not a polychroma, so a Prismacolor. So these are quite waxy and soft. These are soft pencils, which means you can apply them quite well over each other, pencil over pencil. Usually pencil becomes quite slippery to work over. but these are actually quite good. The foundation of the drawing is done with a terracotta pencil. Now, this technique comes to us from courtesy of Leonardo da Vinci. How do we know that? Well, we kind of deconstruct a lot of Leonardo's paintings, and you can see that there's quite a bit of drawing involved in the painting process underneath the oil paint, but he did a lot of pen drawings and a lot of charcoal drawings in the days. He didn't have pencils. He had like terracotta pastels and things like that. But he'd work on toned paper, not because they didn't have white paper, but because toned paper actually gave you a foundation to work from. So you can actually work with white to paint in light and black to paint in shadows. And of course the warm tones of the pencil kind of approximate flesh tones, the warmth of skin, of living tissue. So these are quite common. These were very common forms of drawing materials in the High Renaissance, and of course in the later, like the neoclassicists, which are around the time.
And what's
of Napoleon.
what's the colour made out of actually?
Well, it's a coloured lead, so it's a lead-based pigment or wax and oil and pigment to create a lead form. So when I say lead, it's not actually lead. Lead is like graphite.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a high. It's like a secret formula from these pencil companies, and you kind of get what you pay for with art materials. So the more money you pay for it, the better the bonding of the pigment and the medium, and can deliver quite a long, smooth pencil stroke.
Yeah.
Any cheaper products will sort of suffer in that it won't cover the paper very well, be too hard for you to work with, and it just becomes an unpleasant experience.
While we're talking about graphene that is in this pencil, Bucky, prior to his death in 1983. He, because of his study of nature, and the question that comes to my mind is how many atoms there are in this pencil that you're presently drawing with, Frantz. But he predicted before he died that nature would produce a C60 molecule. It hadn't been discovered.
Yep.
And in 1989, the C60 molecule was discovered.
Right.
And it's called the Buckminster Fullerene in his honour.
Oh my God!
And it looks like a soccer ball. So if you picture that, anyone who's interested, look up the Buckminster Fullerene, and you'll see what an influential guy he was. And one of his great sayings that I love, and there are many of them. So we can, as we go on, we can talk about it. But he said, you can either make dollars or you can make cents.
Yeah.
S-E-N-S-E.
Yeah.
What a beautiful line.
Pun.
You can make dollars or cents. And he devoted his life to making sense.
Yep.
He also said he would know if he's making sense if the universe supported him.
Yep.
So he dedicated his life in 1932, when he was 36 years of age, to only acting in the best interests of humanity, and he would know that he was on track because the universe would either send him supportive messages or other messages. And that's
when you say supportive messages, you're talking about like a synchronous sort of.
Absolutely, yes. He wasn't driven by accumulating great wealth, but he was certainly committed to protecting his intellectual property.
Yeah.
And even today, there is a Buckminster Fuller Institute.
Yep.
In America, and you can't use his material without due reference, without paying for a proper usage of it.
Yep.
And he did that not to get wealthy, but to recognise the source of where these ideas came from, so that they weren't stolen. And so, to that extent, he had a good, healthy ego, but he kept it well in check, because he subsumed his ego for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah. Wow.
So he was an extraordinary man. He was going to commit suicide.
Yes.
He was born in 1896. He went to a Montessori kindergarten, and
Wow.
I often wonder whether he came from a quite well-to-do family, but I often wonder whether his genius was to what extent it was influenced by the type of education from the Montessori kindergarten, which is also available in Australia.
Yep.
And the glasses that you're now drawing, he was always short-sighted.
Yep.
And
he had poor hearing.
And he had poor hearing, and he died in 1983 at the age of 87. So, and he one of the in fact, I was quoting him today in the meeting that I had before I came to be with you, friends, that I was dealing with a professor from a Melbourne University who said, many of the students are just dumb. And I said, Bucky said, every child is born a genius.
Yeah.
And I certainly believe that.
Absolutely.
And each one of us, and he said what he achieved in his life, 47 honorary doctorates, vast number of patents. He said any average adult could achieve what he achieved. Well, I don't believe that's so, but his work ethic was incredible. He rarely slept more than 4 hours.
Yep.
He slept when he felt like sleeping. He didn't sleep, from at a particular time at night.
Well, what's that saying? Sleep is like the little slice of death.
I haven't heard that one. Very good. Very good. And so he also said, and I was a lawyer for 20 years, a business lawyer, commercial lawyer.
Yep.
And in 1993, when I shifted career to become Australasia's passion provocateur, to provoke people to pursue their passion, well, Bucky said that the future of the planet depends on each one of us acting in accordance with our intuitive wisdom. Yep. Not listening to what other people say that you should be doing. And so
your gut feelings.
And your gut feelings. And but then the question is, what is intuitive wisdom versus fear? And being driven by fear is not a very good basis for making your decisions. So that therefore requires what Socrates said, self-awareness.
Yes.
Am I being driven by fear now, or by my intuitive wisdom that says, leave this job that's paying me $1 million a year?
Yep.
And because I'm scared of the decisions I have to make.
Yep.
Or I'm scared of being in the public eye.
Yeah.
So it's
a very common dilemma faced with a great number of people, including myself.
It's a crucial distinction, isn't it? Why do we do what we do? And so Bucky said, you can't tell people to change behaviour. That won't work. You can't. His philosophy was, and I keep checking my work to make sure my philosophy is somewhat in alignment with his.
Yep.
I'm a great fan of his.
Yep.
And his philosophy, one of them was, do what you uniquely see needs to be done.
Yeah.
What do you see that no one else can see? That you are a product of the universe. What is it that you can see needs to be done?
Mm-hmm. It's almost like that other saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
That's it.
So do it yourself. There's nobody other than you that's responsible for your success or your failure. You are uniquely responsible, and it's about time you got up off your chair and did what you wanted to do, what you believed in, what you truly believe in.
Yeah, that's an interesting word, responsibility. The willingness to take responsibility is low in Australia. I consider we live in an analgesic society. Yep. Whatever you do, blame someone else. Don't take responsibility.
Yep.
And Bucky got out there and he said, this is what I see needs to be done, and I'll go and do it. And he considered himself a failure, and that's why he dedicated himself at the age of 30. Was it 1927? He was going to commit suicide. Yes, I think he was 31 when he was going to commit suicide, because he had let down his daughter. He had lost money for investors, and he said the universe would be better off if I wasn't here. And then he was walking into Lake Michigan near Chicago, and he got a message, and the message said, "You don't belong to you, you belong to universe."
Yes.
Pretty powerful idea, isn't it? And then,
it is. Yeah.
And then to dedicate.
So it's not really up to you to do what you're trying to do. It's up to the
you've got
universe.
a job to do, but
Yeah.
what that is, you have to work out. But you've got a job to do. You can't just throw this life away.
Yeah. So remember, it's not the destination; it's the journey. That's the whole reason for this drawing, is really to encompass that and to sort of help you to understand. Drawing is a process. It's a unique, very bizarre, strange process of that we as humans perform, instinctively from childhood. You give any child a crayon and they'll draw. Not only that, but they'll draw stories. They don't draw bowls of fruit. So they draw tales, stories, things.
Right? Yeah. I'm interested. I'm intrigued how many times you use your eraser, your rubber.
Well, look, I'm a great belief in pivoting, so changing direction and coming up with a better idea. I tend to not have a form, like a fully formed concept, even from this stage, from thumbnail stage. It's not fully formed yet, so I still have areas of discovery to find in the face or in the the reference material. So sometimes I make little, not errors, but sort of I change my attention and focus on something else, or I forget to see or to render something in particular, to think about light and form and also the lines of the face and what they mean. There's a lot of things happening all at once. This is not like a tick box situation. It's not a shopping list drawing. Drawing is a very personal expression, and it sort of occurs to you as you do it. So a lot of the processes involved in drawing happen in the drawing. They don't happen before.
Okay. Yep. Yes, I've said to you before, I really need to do I want to do a drawing class because you have told. Can most people draw?
Everyone can draw. Everybody draws. It's not that everyone can draw. Everyone does draw, but they just don't. They don't own up to it. It's like everything. You doodle. That's drawing. You gather your thoughts visually. You tell stories visually. It doesn't matter the size of the story or how great or simple the story is. People say, I can only draw a stick figure. Well, guess what? What do you think a stick figure is? It's a drawing. It's a symbol. It's a symbolic form of visual narrative.
And people who have done courses with you who did not believe they could draw, after some period of time,
they get their drawing mojo back. Something that some of them haven't drawn since their childhood.
And they come back to success to be able to. Yeah, that's. It's a
natural form of expression. There's nothing mysterious about it at all. It's just that some people have chosen to keep, the crayon, and keep drawing, keep at it. I've had parents growing up who supported this strange behaviour. They didn't see it as something odd or frivolous. They just supported it. They just understood it. He's an artist. He draws. That's it.
And Bucky did a lot of drawings. Have you seen a lot of his drawings in your journey?
I haven't seen a lot of them, but yes, architects have to draw. They've got a, no pun intended, they have a unique perspective on the world in that they create a believable environment for us to imagine that we're inhabiting. That's the whole idea of architecture, is to create it's like a three-dimensional sculpture that we live in. It's an environment that is, we occupy the environment, but the environment is created by the mind and the imagination of, architects.
Yes. Yes, well, he described himself as a generalist because whilst he was an architect, he was a engineer as well.
Yep.
A scientist.
Yep.
A poet.
Yep.
A philosopher.
None of these
mathematician.
none of these things I'm surprised about, because it just happens to be reflected in the expression in his face, in the lines in his face. There's a lot of activity in his forehead,
Yes.
which means that there's thoughts happening here, emotions and thoughts. There's a lot of sadness and a lot of introspection, a lot of thought and examination. A lot of that is self-examination. Somebody that makes decisions like he did when he was younger, at a critical moment in his life when he could have just ended it all, to come up and pivot straight away, 360 degrees in a positive direction, which we've benefited from, obviously, by
180 degrees.
180 degrees, sorry. 360 puts you right back where you were.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, maths is not my strong point.
I did math science before I did law.
Great. So, we obviously, we use maths every day, but I don't sort of consciously use it, and I'm kind of half concentrating on the outside world. I'm half in this world and half in this world.
Nice.
So I'm in the moment and in the story of this face. That's what I'm trying to find. It's like, studying a map. When you study a map, you imagine yourself in the map.
Yes.
You place yourself in that position. So I'm here touching Bucky's face virtually with my pencils. So I'm trying to establish a hierarchy of light and shade and form, three-dimensional form, with a pencil. This is amazing. I'm creating an illusion of three-dimensional space with these three implements, which come down from the caveman times. So if you ever look at cave drawings in France and things of bison and buffalo and things and mammoths, these are with very little additions. These are basically those implements.
Yes.
So it's something that is, we have a history of using, and we're very peculiar animals. There's no animals that draw, and it's something that just comes with being a human. As I said to you before, all children draw, and because all children draw, that means all adults draw, because all adults were children.
Yep.
So there's a Latin expression that ties that nicely in a nice little ribbon. Ipso facto something or other.
Yes.
It's not I think therefore I am. That's something else, but that's philosophy. But it is a sort of a truism. A lot of these sayings that we spout every day, and that they try to put them on T-shirts and coffee cups and things like that. Some of them are from him, but these sayings are sort of things that try to encapsulate complex thoughts and things from our experience and our life and living and dealing with the real world. At the moment we're going through a period of trial, and hopefully we'll come out of this trial better for the experience. Hopefully, I hope so. This is it's not a foregone conclusion. Humans being what they are, they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But I think in the end, the human spirit is not one of giving up, of kowtowing to the oh woe is me type of scenario. We sort of get on with the process of living and grow through trials and challenges.
Well, that ties in beautifully with one of his other sayings that I share in almost every seminar that I do, and it's the reward as human beings that we get for solving problems. And most people think my reward for solving problems is peace and happiness.
Yeah, no. More problems.
Not only
bigger
more
problems.
Bigger problems.
Bigger ones,
The reward for solving problems is bigger problems. Now, for those of
if you don't
watching
understand that, you're not human.
Yeah.
Because that is a
but
very
most people
human.
don't. This is such a.
I know.
Francis,
they're looking at the short term. They're looking at the small picture and not the big picture.
Yes.
You need to think like Bucky. You need to think like the reinventing the shape of things to come.
Yeah.
Think outside the square. All of these are tropes that we listen to, we look at, we think, oh, that's nice. But, guess what? These are things that you can actually formally apply to your existence in some form. It doesn't have to be overtly. You don't have to sacrifice your life the way that he sacrificed all of his previous suppositions, his previous belief systems and things. It's really the thing that was on that shore that day that he made that decision, that pivotal moment. It wasn't him that was at risk of destruction, of being destroyed. It was this previous erroneous belief system that he had that actually measured success with things.
Yes.
Success is not measured with things. You can't take things with you, and you can't leave things behind. It's taxed. It disappears. It's like shifting sands. The real value that Buckminster had is not the money that he made. It's his thoughts. It's his thoughts that he shared with us while he was actually living on this planet. That's the most important thing. We have history books where we look at, and if you're religious, you can look at the Bible and think, oh, great thoughts, great thinkers, these people in history and stuff. But, this is recent history. You've got a recent history, a guy that you can actually Google, and up he comes on YouTube, large as life, and you can actually get an impression of his insight, his brain, how his brain works. It's amazing. We're existing today in a very lucky period of time.
Yes, being able to access, absolutely.
Yep.
Instant access to his ideas. But also, he said he wouldn't tell people what to do. He would design artifacts. He called them artifacts.
Yep.
And he would say, this is a hammer. I've designed this hammer.
Yep.
This is how you use it. You can keep using a coconut.
Yep.
But here's a hammer, and he said, put it down beside people. They will work out whether they want to use it or not.
Exactly.
And then they will change their behaviour based on that artefact. And an idea can be an artefact as well. And I certainly find that in terms of problems, Frantz, because most people, in my experience, and I coach people one-on-one, and I also help them in their lives in seminars, and they think that they can only be happy when they don't have problems anymore. And that is a very, very limited model of our humanity. So where did you discover this principle of the reward for problem solving being bigger problems and more problems? Where did that come from? Because not many people know that, trust me.
Just by living, art is something artists don't arrive at like a period of time where they know everything, or they can draw everything, or they feel confident about everything. I experience the same anxiety as my students do. I feel I can't draw that, or I feel inadequate in being able to accomplish this or something. It's just, it's like most people, you talk to most people there, when they start drawing, they have a common fear. One is drawing the face, and one is drawing the hands. And the two things that we need as human beings to communicate with each other, and also with animals, because animals, if you look at dogs, they read us as well. They read our method, our visual method of communicating very, very well. But the two things that we need in our life to communicate, and we use it all the time, is our face and our hands. And as artists, the two things that you need to draw are faces and hands. It's very important. So you must get over the fear of that, and our fear is based unfoundedly on the problems of our perception. Our perception of faces and hands are that they're difficult to draw, and they're not difficult to draw. It's our perception. So you approach it simply. I look at approaching this face like I did here, right? As a simple object, a simple construct. So the face itself, I broke down into a very simple shape. So think of a sculptor like Brancusi or somebody who does a figurative sculpture, but is creates something very geometrically simple. So out of something simple, you can then layer and construct, details.
Beautiful.
The process
I love how you do that process. And you're right. Each stroke that you're doing here is just one stroke. Isn't it?
That's it.
It's
not scary. Yeah, and you have pressure. Obviously, the harder you push, the darker the lines become. And if you want them to be lighter, you press lighter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that. Stroke pressure. It's not something you. It's not a robotic thing. It's something you get from experience of drawing, and it's the same experience that you've had, remembering, drawing boats and whales and things like that on the lounge room wall when you were a kid, and getting in trouble for it probably. Although I think my parents just had this. Ever like a never-ending supply of paper, usually like butcher's paper, big white sheets, and there's 100 crayons of different colours, and
yes,
off you go, enjoy.
And did you have brothers and sisters?
I have a twin sister, and she is likewise involved in arts and crafts. So, and my daughters, all three of them, they all draw. So it's just something you grow up with in an environment that supports that sort of activity and doesn't see anything funny or weird in it. My father was a carpenter, and he used to draw in his workbooks, jobs and things that he had to build with his hands. But he built them first with his mind on paper and with a pencil.
Yes.
So, the geodesic dome existed on paper in pencil before it was ever built. Building it in his imagination's already been built, But it's nice to have vindication in the three-dimensional world that we live in.
Now, Bucky, when he walked back out of Lake Michigan, so in 1927, I think, at the age of 31, he said he would be very precise with his language, and for 2 years he was married to Elizabeth, and he had a daughter, Allegra, who's I think still alive, and his other daughter died, and he was very disappointed in in failing to keep his promise to her. And that's one of the reasons why he wanted to commit suicide. But then he took 2 years off from speaking. And if you read anything written by Bucky, it can be quite difficult to understand. But he made up words to properly describe life. And two things apply. One is, I say to people, tell me something that's true, and they go, well, the sun rises in the east. And Bucky was always against educating children with falsehoods. And one of the falsehoods is that the sun rises in the east, because it doesn't. And so he coined words like, it's not sunrise, it's sunsight. And it's not sunset, but it's an eclipse of the sun. So he called that a sunclipse. And the other thing that he developed was the Dymaxion map of the world. That is accurate to 1%. And the Mercator projection that most kids see in schools these days,
they're inaccurate.
they are grossly inaccurate. So that Greenland is shown as 3 times the size of Australia, but in fact it's 1/4 the size of Australia. So it's a 12 times distortion of reality. And so his Dymaxion map of the world folds up as a icosahedron, a 20-sided polygram, and he then, when you look at that Dymaxion map, and I think we should show the viewers what that looks like in a moment. It shows that all land masses are actually closely joined. When you look at the north-south orientation of the planet rather than east-west, all major land masses are closely joined. And you don't have to. So that then led to his thinking. So he did it brushstroke like brushstroke.
Yeah.
He then said, oh gosh, have a look at the world this way. And then he discovered the number one way in which the lot of humanity could be improved, and that is through electricity. And so I'm a trustee, Frantz, of the Global Energy Network Institute, GENI, that is based on Bucky's Dymaxion map and the interconnection of all electricity grids around the world. And because they don't have to go underwater, they can go, for example, the distance between America and Russia is how far? It's about 50 kilometres across the Bering Sea.
Yep.
And so the linking of electricity grids means that electricity can be taken all around the world. Now, this is in the days that solar wasn't being used to a great degree, but GENI, G-E-N-I, the reason why I'm involved in it is because the way to solve poverty on the planet is by getting electricity. Electricity is the foundational difference between rich and poor countries.
And deserts and cities.
And so Bucky sorted that problem out. And so with GENI, I work on that, and so I'm constantly immersed in the thinking of Fuller, so that I have a very optimistic vision of the future, because Bucky did as well. And before he died, I heard a recording of him, one of his last speeches that he made. He said, I think we're going to make it, because we can destroy ourselves. In 1983, the Cold War was on.
It was still on, yeah.
I think we can make it.
Yeah. Wow.
And I consider myself an artefact of Bucky. So that by me talking about these ideas that I share, the philosophy around problems, that I'm a living, breathing result of his work.
Well, in that the concepts that he proposed and the wisdom that he shared with everybody over the years. I mean, it's based on, a lot of it's based on common sense. A lot of it's based on things that we already know, well, we should know, but we don't. We're not thinking about. So, the benefits of the true benefits of somebody like Bucky, trying to share his take on the world with us is something that's not foreign. It's not new. These are not new insights. This is just insights that we should already adhere to, but he's just pointing them out. So he's reminding us.
He predicted that his architectural designs for buildings would only be embraced 50 years after his death.
Right.
So that would make it 2033. And now in the middle of this lockdown, we're getting a new appreciation of the use of resources, the conversations around climate change, the environment,
There should never be a conversation about waste. Waste is just, it's contrary to living, because
there is no waste. Everything is raw material.
Yeah.
Everything is raw material, and he would say in his lectures, he said, people say you're going to throw something out. Out to where? Where is out?
Yeah.
There is no out. We're on spaceship Earth. We're all inhabiting this spaceship, and you and I, right now, are sharing molecules of oxygen, of air, amongst each other.
Yep.
Well, I love the work you're doing. Are there any comments you want to make here for your audience, looking at this genius at work that you are?
Well, usually you look at people and you judge them by their expressions. Now, you may be thinking, well, he's got a pretty unhappy expression, but I don't read it like that. I read it as a very serious expression because his thoughts, I think, are very serious. He takes them very seriously, and they're precious. And, as well, probably most thoughts in the world, I guess have a certain degree of importance and preciousness because they, especially new thoughts, they haven't existed before, they need the air to breathe, and I think it's a very important thing to do that, because otherwise you just get the same old. It's like what's that saying about I think it's something to solve a problem. If you need to solve a problem, you have to change the question.
Yes, Einstein said you can't solve a problem at the level of thinking that created the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we are being forced in this lockdown to really come with new ways of thinking, aren't we?
We are. I don't think overall, we're doing too badly. I mean, the jury's still out, of course, but at the moment, I think we're affording ourselves quite well under the circumstances. I mean, this is a new experience for everyone.
Yeah.
And just to walk out in the street and see, most of the streets empty, it's just a new experience. It just means that people have accepted this as a reality, a temporary reality. I don't want to scare people. It's not going to be there for forever. But it's how, think about this. This is how adaptable we are and how attuned we are with solving problems, but really like a innate sense of common sense and responsibility. Most of us. I think all of us, but some of us sort of stubbornly adhere to, other ideas temporarily, just because we have this ornery nature to break the rules.
Well, not only that. We're Aussies.
That's true.
And two, our humanity, talking about thoughts, it is freedom that makes us truly human. Because without freedom, we are just like animals.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's not much different than we do. Drawing, animals don't do. I like that drawing. This idea, there's something else that no animal has been seen to draw.
Yep.
But it's freedom, and so when people take away freedom, there better be a bloody good reason for doing so.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
And what's the meaning of the pentagons here?
These are like little segments of his geodesic dome. There's a sort of filaments and atoms that fly around the universe.
He had a hexagon surrounded by pentagons.
Yeah.
Wow, this is magnificent. I'll be able to share this with my colleagues in Genie, and we need to put this on the Genie website, which is geniefoundation.org.au.
Fantastic. There's Bucky.
Is that it? Can I take a photo of this?
You can take a photo of that. I'll step back. And actually, before we do that, is there anything we need to sign off or?
Yes, I think what we need to remember is what Bucky exhorted us to do, which is to work to make the planet work for everybody and not just a minority.
Yeah, fantastic.
So he dedicated his life to that principle, and I think, Franz, with your wonderful drawings, you are adding value to humanity, and you are, if you inspire just one person to look deeply into Buckminster Fuller, you have added great value, and you have become an artefact of Buckminster Fuller, as
Awesome.
I am.
Fantastic. Well done. So just to round off, where can people find your podcast? Is
charleskovess.com.
Kovess.
That's correct. Charles Kovess, Kovess.com.
Fantastic. All right, this is Frantz Kantor and Charles Kovess, and this is Buckminster Fuller, and I will catch you on the flip side. Bye-bye.
Bye.